Thank you, Timothy, and welcome. Thank you so much for giving up your evening and for inviting us and me to showcase our school, our college, and we all know my colleagues who are here with me know how important financial aid is. So I now what my job is to do is to go ahead and plant those seeds and give you the resources on how to pay for your college education. Next screen. So introduction to financial aid, and I do know that I do have some transfer students in here, so this you might be very well familiar with the financial aid process, but I also know that I have some new students here. And if you are coming as a transfer students, if you're planning on or you'd like to, transfer here from a community college, do know that financial aid is a lot different. And I definitely want to leave you with knowing that yes, the cost to attend four-year school is a lot more costlier than a community college. However, the resources are here so that way you're able to pay for your college education. So introduction to financial aid, what does it do? It's access to funds to help families pay. So either a four-year public or private college, community college. So for those of you who are in high school, we've got a great transfer program. If you decide that you might want to navigate that community college, that is certainly, an option for you. And then you transfer here to UC San Diego. So there is financial aid also at a community college, private career colleges. And what I like to say is the most important thing about financial aid students is that it gives you the choice of what school you would like to attend. What is a good fit for you? Best academically, culturally, socially. And what's so important is that as you're researching, you high school students or students are planning to transfer from a community college, don't just limit yourself to applying to the least expensive school. Because I want you to keep in mind that the higher the cost of attendance, the higher the financial need, the higher the financial aid. So as you're doing your research, again, don't just limit yourself for the cost because of that reason. And I'm going to go into that and give you some more detail in my other slides. But just keep that in mind, students, as you're researching on where you want to attend. You know that what's most important is you're going to excel where you're comfortable at. What is a good fit for you? And we certainly think UC San Diego is a good fit for you. So that's why we want you to keep that in mind as you're navigating applying. Next. Okay, so I always say that as you're applying for financial aid, it's always begins with the cost of attendance, and every college has their own cost of attendance. Within that cost of attendance, one of the huge categories, or what you would want to know, what would it cost for me just to pay to attend classes? Okay, so what would it cost as you're again students, as you're researching, what would it cost you just to attend college? At a community college, it's relatively cheap because again, it's a community college. At a Cal State, that's what it would cost a student to attend classes there. Cal State's a semester system. UC, we are on a quarter system here at UC San Diego. Most of our UC schools are on a quarter system. So our system-wide fees is $12,570. And then your private schools, they begin, with maybe $40,000 just to attend classes. So as you're looking and researching, look to see what would it cost you just to attend college, just to pay to attend, I guess, your classes. Let me say that. Next screen. In addition to paying for classes, what else do you need in what else is included in the budget? Many of you will choose to live on campus, and we certainly hope you take that opportunity because we feel that, to at least live on campus, at least for 1 year, 2 years, it's a great experience. And if you have the financial aid, and we offer you the financial aid either here at UC San Diego or another school, we certainly encourage you to take advantage of that. We have some great transfer students for our transfer students to live on campus. So they're great apartments. It's geared towards that older student. So transfer students, for those of you who are thinking of attending here, I highly encourage you to check out our commuter housing for students who are transfer students. Personal expenses. That's another category that is included in that cost of attendance. It's not something the school's going to charge you, but it's something you're going to need. So that way, we want you to be successful here. And what are things that you're going to need in addition to the money, in addition to going to classes, paying for your classes, and living on campus, room and board? Transportation. Some of you will bring your cars to campus, and you're going to need money for parking, or you're going to take trolley's going to open up shortly. You'll take the trolley or the bus. Okay, books and supplies. You're going to need some cases money for books and supplies. That's all included in that cost of attendance. And again, every college has their own cost of attendance. The two main category students I'd like you to focus on is what would it cost you just to attend classes, and then what would it cost if you lived on campus? And for those of you who will not live on campus, then there's money there for living expenses if you choose not to live on campus, to help you pay for your room, your rent, your food, your utilities. Okay, so keep that in mind as you're researching and you're looking at the school's cost of attendance. Next screen. Now, where do we get the money from financially? Where does it come from? It comes from the federal government. It comes from the state government. Every university, every college has their own pool of money, and private agencies. That's where, and I'm proud to say that many of our entering students will bring in scholarships from the outside. And I will show a slide that is going to give you some great scholarship search engines so that you can start applying now, students, because the more outside money you bring, your goal is to keep your loan indebtedness down. And that's a great way to do that, is by applying for outside scholarships. There are plenty of companies, organizations, corporations that do offer scholarships for various reasons. Next slide. Now, the types of aid. And students, your goal is to apply for as much free money, gift money, grants, scholarships. That's money that does not have to be repaid. A Pell Grant, federal grant, the Cal Grant, that's a state grant for those California residents who will be attending a California college. There's that Cal Grant. University grant. So that anytime you see the word grant, scholarship, that is free money. That's what you're going to strive to do. Apply for it, because your goal, students, is to try to get through by taking out the least amount of loans as possible, by applying, meeting deadlines, and receiving as much gift money, free money as possible. Now, we're a public institution, so we're limited on the amount of gift money that we can offer for the majority of our students here. But there's loans. So loans is another thing that we say, okay, loans is financial aid. We want students to borrow wisely, but in some cases, students will need to borrow loans. We do offer loans to our students. It's up to them if they choose to accept it or not. And again, if you bring in outside scholarships, this will reduce the amount of loans that you will have to, borrow. You will have to pay it back. They are paid back with interest. For a subsidized loan, the government is paying interest on your behalf during the time you're attending. And as long as you don't drop below half time, the government is going to pay that interest on your behalf. You do not have to make any payments on this principal, and interest will not start accruing until 6 months after you graduate. But do know that it does have to be repaid. So if you borrow, students, borrow wisely. Now, there's the unsubsidized loan. So when you see that word unsubsidized, what that means is that the government is not paying interest on your behalf during the time you're in school. You do not have to make any payments on this loan while you're in school, but the interest is accruing. Okay, so subsidized, government's paying interest while you're in school. Unsubsidized, interest starts accumulating. Then there's another type of great program that we have here, students, is the work study program. And this says where you're earning as you're learning. So it's money earned through part-time employment. It's an hourly wage. Most of our positions are on campus. However, we do have positions off campus. It's just like a regular job. We offer it to you in your award packet. You accept it. you apply, you interview, you get hired, you work, you get a paycheck. So this is a great way to keep that loan indebtedness down because you're working and instead of having to pay it back later on. But it's a great program, and the reason why it's financial aid students is because in the back end financial aid is paying 50% of your wage and the department's paying 50% of your wage. But that's also a great program. Next slide. Now, I'm going to spend a little bit of time on the Blue and Gold Opportunity Plan, students, because sometimes this it gets a little confusing. So what is Blue and Gold Opportunity Plan? And this is our regents drafted this up a few years ago. And what it is basically it's saying, how do we get that California resident who wants to attend one of our UC schools? How do we help them, because we are a public institution, receive some type of gift money, grant money? So what they did was they said, okay, students, if you're apply and plan to attend a UC school, you're a California resident, your family income is less than 80,000. So family income has to be less than 80,000. You qualify for need-based aid. You want to apply on time. Then you are eligible for the Blue and Gold. But the final criteria that needs to be met, students, before we will actually award you that Blue and Gold, is you will total up, add up all of your gift money, your Pell Grant, your Cal Grant, your university grant, any scholarships. So you add up all of your gift money. And if it is less than our system-wide fees, which is $12,570, we will award you the Blue and Gold. Now, in most cases, not all cases, but in most cases, students, if your family is less than 80,000 and we don't look at assets for this, you're going to receive grant money that will exceed 12,570. Okay, so just keep that in mind, because when we send out our college financing plans, once you've been accepted to UC San Diego or any of the UC schools, it would say on there that you're Blue and Gold eligible. But before we will actually award it, we want you to total up all of your gift money, because what this plan it does is what it says basically is it's saying that if you don't have enough gift money, free money, grant money to pay the system-wide fees, and your family earns less than 80,000, then you will receive a Blue and Gold Opportunity Plan. So that way we can at least cover those system-wide fees. Okay, I know there's going to be questions because we always do, but it's basically you total up all the gift money, and if it's less than 12,570, if you're going to be attending a UC school and you're a California resident, family earns less than 80,000. We want to make sure that we can at least pay your system-wide fees. Next. Now, here's the middle class scholarship, and this is for students who are applying to the Cal State schools, public college as well. And it could be or UC school if their family income is over 80,000, but less than 191,000. So students, you should apply for financial aid. Oftentimes we hear, well, my family, earns over 100,000, but here's an example. By you either completing the FAFSA or the DREAM application, there's gift money available for you. Okay, so this is called the middle class scholarship, and you just have to either complete one of the two applications. We will determine, if you're eligible, and we will award it. It's not quite as much as that 12,570, but it is free money, gift money for that middle class family who earns over 80,000 but less than 191,000. Next. Now, I talked about and I mentioned about applying for scholarships. So students, this is a great way to keep that loan indebtedness down. Here's some great reputable scholarship search engines. I encourage you all to start applying, because remember, any outside scholarship you bring in, we reduce down your loan. We reduce down work study. The last thing we ever touch is your grant money, but this is the wonderful way to keep that loan indebtedness down. If I have any San Diego County or San Diego residents in the audience right now, that San Diego Foundation.org is a wonderful organization that offers scholarships. And it's only for students who are San Diego residents or San Diego County residents. You don't have to necessarily attend the college here in California, or certainly not in San Diego, but you just have to be a resident. So I encourage San Diego County or San Diego residents to apply for that scholarship when it becomes available. Next. Now, how do you apply? So we talked about what was out there, the types. Now, how do you apply? So you're either going to complete a FAFSA free application for federal student aid, and you'll go to the studentaid.gov, or you will complete the DREAM Act application at dream.csac.california.gov. You're going to be applying seniors in October. So you apply October in your senior year in high school. For those of you who are transferring from a community college, you apply October, the month right before you start applying into the colleges. Applications are due March 2nd. Now, applications are due March 2nd for UCs, Cal States, but it's very important that if it's not a UC or a Cal State school, students, that you do some research to find out, do they have an earlier due date? For UCs and the Cal State schools, in order for you to be considered on time for that Cal grant or priority funding at UC San Diego, we want you to meet that March 2nd deadline so we can offer you the best packet. So that application, again, it opens up October, and you want to have it completed and transmitted by March 2nd. Very important. Next screen. Now, which application? This question is for the students. Okay, students, this question is for you, not parents, but for you. Are you a U.S. citizen or a permanent resident? If the answer is yes, then you complete the FAFSA at the studentaid.gov. If you, the student, is without lawful status or AB 540, then you complete the California DREAM application at the dream.csac.california.gov. Now, I say this is for you students because oftentimes there's some confusion. The student might be a U.S. citizen or a permanent resident, but their parents are not. And there's a confusion there. This question is for the student. If the parent is not a U.S. citizen or a permanent resident that does not have a social security number, but the student is completing the FAFSA, then there's this extra step that the student has to complete, such as the signature page, because there is no social security number there. So it's just an extra step, students, but just, keep in mind, because we have this every year, where a student completes the wrong application. So again, students, it's really important. If you're a U.S. citizen or permanent resident, you complete the FAFSA. If you're without lawful status or AB 540, you complete the DREAM application. It's one or the other. You don't complete both. Okay. Next screen. And there's an app for that app, FAFSA. It's very user-friendly. You can download it on the App Store, Google Play. We make it really easy, students, so that you can apply. Next screen. Now, when you do get ready to complete one of these two applications, what it's going to start with, it's going to ask the student's demographics, information about the student. The next section, students, that's really important, is that you are going to list the schools you're applying to. You do not wait till you've been accepted, because, for the UCs, we don't accept our students or admit our class until mid-March. That's after that March 2nd deadline. So you're going to list the schools that you're applying to. I recommend you list them in the order of your choice. What's your number 1, number 2, number 3, number 4? You can list 10 schools at a time. Another recommendation is, I know as much as we'd like you to attend UC San Diego, some of you might be attending or applying to, want to attend maybe a private school or an out-of-state school. Really important. What is the deadline? Do they have an earlier deadline? Then you might want to make sure that that school from, either out of state or a private school gets listed up there at the very top. Dependency status. Now that's where it's going to determine if the student has to provide parents information. So students in general, if you're under the age of 24, you're considered a dependent student for financial aid. Totally separate for tax paying purposes. But for financial aid, if you're under the age of 24, then you're considered dependent, which means that you will provide your parents information. Now, I say in general because there are some cases where a student could be under the age of 24 and not have to provide parents information because, let's say, for example, the student is married or the student has children or the student was a ward of the court, student was a former foster youth. So there are certain categories where a student does not have to provide parents information and they're under the age of 24. But how you answer those questions will determine. And like I say, in most cases, if you're under the age of 24, you're going to be providing your parents information, regardless if you live at home with your parents, regardless if your parents claim you. If you're under the age of 24, then in most cases, you are going to give your parents information. And that's where you'll list the parents' demographics. You're going to list your income and your assets from your parents, financial information for your parents as well as yourself. You're going to be using, for those of you who are planning to complete this FAFSA in October, because you're a senior or you're going to be transferring in the fall of 22, you will be using tax information from the tax returns of 2020. You're going to sign and submit, and then you're going to get a confirmation. So that's the information that they're going to ask on your FAFSA or your DREAM Act. Now let's jump up to number one. And students, this is also really important because you want to make sure that your name is your legal name, your social security number. Make sure that you have the right social security number. Make sure that the name on your admissions application matches the name on your FAFSA or your DREAM Act. It's really important because we want to be able to offer you a college financing plan or a financial aid estimate to help once you get admitted, to help you make the choice of where you're going to be able to attend, because all of the schools that you listed on either the FAFSA or the DREAM Act, and they admit you, they will all of the schools, we will give you it's called the college financing plan or an estimate. So that way you can, some of you are like, no, UC San Diego is definitely the school, my dream school. And, your decision's already been made. And most students, they're going to look to see what school is going to offer them. In most cases, scholarships and grant money. So really important when you're completing that application. Next screen. So now by, you completing one of these two applications, what it's going to do is it's going to collect information from you and your family to determine your parent contribution, what your parents have the ability to contribute, the student, with the student's ability to contribute. So it's a formula that's used it's called congressional methodology. So each school uses the same formula to determine what is the ability for the parents and the student, which we call a family contribution, an expected family contribution. What is the ability? And that's the second component of financial aid. Okay. After completing these two applications, then we're going to have a family contribution, and that family contribution will determine the amount and the types of aid that we will be able to award you. Next. So this is the formula, students. And you remember I mentioned earlier on, higher the cost of attendance, higher the financial need, higher the financial aid. cost of attendance, and every school has their own cost of attendance. So what I like to, recommend and encourage students as you're researching, because you got to go on to that college and you got to research to find out how do you apply to that college, how do what application is needed to apply to that college or university. Immediately go on to the financial aid at that institution to find out what is the requirement there. Okay, and what is that cost of attendance? Because again, every school has their own cost of attendance. Cost of attendance minus family contribution equals financial need equals financial aid. That's the formula, students. Next screen. Now that's that's how we determine the amount and the type of aid we're going to be awarding you based on that family contribution that we receive either from the FAFSA by you completing the FAFSA or you completed the DREAM application. You get that family contribution. Now, remember I mentioned that we're going to be using, for those of you who will be attending college, either a 4-year or you're coming from high school, going to a community college, you're going to be using tax returns for 2020. Things could have happened what happened when your parents filed or you filed your taxes in 2020. What's happening now currently? So if there is a special circumstances or a change in that family, what's going on with the family, either loss of income, high medical dental, change in marital status, or maybe just some other type of an appeal. A common one, students, is loss of income or loss of business due to the COVID, what's happening. Unfortunately, it did affect many of our families. So if things have changed, if when you go to complete that FAFSA or the DREAM application, and what happened in 2020 when your parents completed their tax returns is not what's happening now, then you want to starts off with with an email. So what are your top choice schools? What school would you love to attend? And then what school, certainly when you get admitted, what school are you going to attend? It just starts with an email. And then we can help you navigate that appeal process. Each of the financial aid office has their own appeal forms or ways to appeal, because the financial aid office, we have the ability to adjust that family contribution by collecting information on what's occurring now, what's going on now in that family's household, that student's household. Next. So again, application information tips, October 1st is when the applications become available. March 2nd for either Cal State or UC. But again, students, what is that? The deadlines for that out-of-state school or that private school? It's going to show right on that financial aid site at that college that you're applying to, because they could have other deadlines. And at least one student and a parent whose information is reported must complete and sign the FAFSA and the DREAM Act. It's very user-friendly, students. If you have any questions, I know your high school students, a lot of your high school counselors or your college counselors, I mean, they're great. And as far as helping you to complete the applications, we have Cal SOAP is a great organization that offers different workshops. You're certainly always welcome to contact UC San Diego, and I'll give you our contact information. If you encounter any problems or if you have any problems, we'd be more than happy to help you navigate the system. Next screen. Now, I pretty much covered about UC San Diego or UC's, Cal State's private UC's or state schools. But again, what about independent? What about the private colleges? I know there might be some here in the audience who might be contemplating applying to either an independent or a private college. You might need an additional form other than the FAFSA or the California DREAM Act. The CSS financial aid profile is a common form, not for UCs or Cal States, but for out-of-state schools and certainly your private schools, because they're collecting additional information that the FAFSA or the DREAM Act does not ask. Okay, but as far as UCs, it's just that FAFSA, that CSS financial aid profile is not required. Some schools, private schools, have their own institutional financial form in addition to the FAFSA or in addition to the DREAM Act. And then scholarship applications. For all of you who are applying to any of the UC schools, your admissions application is used to apply for your scholarship here at UC San Diego. There is not a supplemental scholarship application, students. By you completing your admissions application, you will automatically be considered for any scholarship that you're eligible for. But again, that's UC San Diego. What about those other schools you might be applying to? Most schools have a supplemental scholarship application. So it's very important when you're researching to find out what is needed and how you apply to that college or university, you go right over to the financial aid and review what you need to do to apply for financial aid and scholarships at that institution. Next. So now, I know I threw out a lot of information. Again, it's just to kind of plant those seeds to let you know that there is the resources available, certainly for here, and some of this information you can certainly take to any of the other schools you're applying to. But if you have any questions, students, contact us. This is our email. Our website is very user-friendly and it has great information, lots of good resources. I mean, it goes into actually the nitty-gritty, the details of the different types of grants I mentioned, the loans, the work-study program. We have virtual counseling Monday through Friday, 8 a.m. to 4:30 p.m. You're welcome to go in and visit us if you're UC bound or even if you're not UC bound, just come on in, and because we certainly can help you navigate applying for financial aid, because we do realize and we recognize that it can be a little confusing, especially for students. Either it's the first time applying or even our transfer students, because it is so different in the amount of aid that we offer here or at a traditional four-year school is so much more than at a community college that you were offered. Many of you, if I have any transfer students in the audience, many of you might have just received that Board of Governors waiver that waived your fees. Some of you might have received the Pell Grant. There's that Promise Grant. So it's a lot different, and it's really limited at a community college because, let's face it, the cost of attendance is a lot less. And then again, many students, you don't live on campus, and we certainly would encourage you to live on campus. And remember, the higher the cost of attendance, the higher the financial need, higher the financial aid. When you go to complete either the FAFSA, this is our federal school code. You want to go ahead and put that, use that code on there. Next. Is that it, Timothy? I think this is my last slide. Correct?
Well, it may be the last slide, but we still have lots of time for question and answer. Yvonne, thank you so much for the helpful information. It was really, I always learn something new each time. We have received a number of excellent questions. All the questions are excellent, and the financial aid team is behind the scenes responding to some of those questions, all the questions. But there are some questions that we would like for you, if you're available, to try to address these questions.
Absolutely.
Well, the first question we have is, regardless of income level, some of the students are asking, should a student submit the FAFSA or the California DREAM application regardless of income? So maybe you can address that. Some students might have more income than they might think would qualify for financial aid. I mean, what would you advise these students?
Now, if there's any students out there who are applying to private schools, I can tell you that many of your private schools, they will require you to complete the FAFSA application before they award their scholarships, because it's so much more expensive to attend a private school. I mean, remember I showed that screen where that just to attend classes could easily begin at 40,000. So it's really important. Again, I showed that income of 191,000 for those students who want to apply either to a UC or a Cal State school. I encourage all students, it does not cost anything but some time. And remember, I mentioned about maybe things might happen, life happens sometimes. So maybe let's say your parents have have a good income for 2020, and you complete the FAFSA or the DREAM Act, and then we admit you to UC San Diego, and you say, yeah, I'm going to attend UC San Diego. And then maybe your parent loses their job, or your parent gets sick and they have some really high medical or dental expenses. If we have your FAFSA or your DREAM Act, we can always at that time offer you, because we'll consider you on time, and still offer you your packet and adjust that family contribution. So this is why I really highly encourage students to apply. It does not take that much students. I think I want to say maybe the first time, maybe 30 minutes, but it's so well worth it, because again, life happens. If you're going to a public institution, or if you're going to a private school, like I say, there are some private schools, that's a requirement to apply there, because again, they want to give their scholarships, or their school. Private can award student, they're not bound by any federal or state regulations, so they can award their students 100% in gift or scholarship money. So, I mean, the answer to your question is, I really highly recommend you either complete the FAFSA or the DREAM Act.
Thanks, Yvonne. That's a very helpful answer. It sounds like it's really well worth it for students, every student, to fill out one or the other. We're getting some questions too about merit-based scholarships. Can you help our audience understand, our students who are participating tonight and their parents and some counselors even, what merit-based scholarships are available at UC San Diego, and how does a student even get considered for something like that?
So the student at UC San Diego, you just complete that admissions application. And by you completing that admissions application, we have two types of scholarships. We have merit-based, that financial need is not looked at all. It's merit-based. And then we also have need-based scholarships that are awarded merit as well as need. By you completing that admissions application, we will automatically again consider you for merit-based scholarships. If you complete the FAFSA or the DREAM Act, you will also be considered for need-based scholarships as well. Again, we do recognize that it's it is very competitive. But however, we do have plenty of scholarships out there, not nearly as much as I wish we did, some of our other sister UC schools have, but all you need to do is complete that admissions application. And by then you'll automatically be considered for any scholarships that you're eligible for.
Thank you very much, Yvonne. That's helpful as well. We are getting some questions. We have quite a few non-resident students in the participating tonight, which is great. We love our California residents, non-residents alike. What advice or what can you say about financial aid for a non-California resident or an international student? Is it even available?
Well, international students, not the FAFSA or the DREAM Act, unfortunately, students, we have a great international center where students, you can contact them and they can give you maybe some links to some scholarships that are just for international students. Our non-resident students, unfortunately, again, we're a public institution, so we're limited on the amount of aid that we can offer the student because we're bound by that federal and state regulations. So non-residents, we can offer federal aid, federal loans, federal work study, and we do have some scholarships for our non-residents. So again, just by you completing that admissions application, you would possibly be considered for a scholarship for our non-residents to help pay that non-resident tuition. But again, by you completing that, the FAFSA or the DREAM Act, and I'm sorry, by you completing our non-residents, completing the FAFSA application, you will be considered for federal aid, loans, federal work study, The Pell Grant is a federal grant, so you could very well be eligible for that federal Pell Grant. And then there are Parent Plus loans that we do offer our non-resident students to help cover that cost, especially with that out-of-state tuition.
Thank you, Yvonne. Thank you very much. Speaking of work study, can you help us to understand a little bit more about what work study opportunities are available
Sure.
at UC San Diego?
So again, I mentioned about how if you list at UC San Diego on your FAFSA or your DREAM Act, and then in mid-March when you get accepted, you'll get on the portal, congratulations, you've been accepted to UC San Diego. Click here on the financial aid link, and that's going to give you an estimate of the types and the amounts of aids we're going to offer you. And again, we'll offer you, let's say student support, population of our students will be offered work study. So once you say, yes, I'm going to attend your institution, you send in your intent, you accept your offer to attend, then we'll send out an official award letter that should look identical to your college financing plan, because remember, we're using last year's tax returns. But what we'll do is there's a link there. It's called My Handshake, and you click on, you say, yes, I want the federal work study. It's use it or lose it. You can accept it and have all year to earn it. There's a department here, a wonderful department here on campus. It's a Career Services, where they will have listings of work study positions and non-work study positions. So there, once you do get accepted, students, and we offer you an official award, you go on, and our award letter, it's very user friendly. You'll just accept your work study. I'll prompt you to get to a link where there'll be a department there. You do that online, and it's like a regular job. You review the positions that are open, you apply, you get interviewed, you get hired, you work, you'll get a paycheck. So that's how work study is. And like I said, why is it financial aid is because in the back end, let's say you got a job that was, I'm just going to throw it out there, $12 an hour, which is, they're more than that, but let's say $12 an hour. And you work for an hour, $12, and the back end, financial aid is paying $6 of your wage, and the department is paying $6. You're getting $12 for that hour that you worked. So that's why it's financial aid, because in the back end, the financial aid is paying 50% of your hourly wage.
That definitely provides a lot of clarity on that particular point. Yvonne, we are getting a lot of great questions, and I want to remind students to continue using the Q&A feature at the bottom of your Zoom screen to send in questions for Yvonne to try and address tonight. We have about 15 minutes left in the session, and Yvonne, the next question, a student asked specifically, what are some ways that they can eliminate debt after graduation, especially after considering all other routes such as financial aid?
So that's a great question. And, things are changing every day. So one of the great ways, is depending on, there's different types. If you took out a loan, there's loan forgiveness programs, there is financial hardship programs. So what if you go on to the studentloan.gov, it's going to give you lots of information on how you could, once you graduate, and that's what I'm assuming you're saying, like we say, to how to keep your loan indebtedness down now is by you applying for scholarships from the university as well as outside, and that helps keep the loan indebtedness down. But for those of you who do need to take out loans, then again, you can, there's different types of programs that you can look into. If you go on to the FAFSA.gov, studentloan.gov, there's these different places where it's going to give you some information on what types of programs are out there after you graduate. And we say, borrow wisely. Some students, believe it or not, can get through without taking out any loans or very little loans. So, some ways is maybe during the summer, you work and save money there in the summer. Again, working either non-work study. We have two types of positions here on campus. So if you weren't offered a work study position, you can certainly still work on campus and with non-work study positions. Not all our positions here on campus are work study. They're also non-work study positions. But again, once our website gives you great information, but there are programs there, students, if you do have to take out a loan, ways to maybe to either, get into certain types of employment. It used to be, but everything changes daily. So, or not maybe daily, but things are changing. So I encourage you to go on to the studentloan.gov website and the FAFSA website that gives great information.
We have another interesting question here, Yvonne. The question reads, if I've been receiving Cal grants in prior years, but then I don't apply for the FAFSA for 1 year, will I no longer qualify for the Cal grant because of that decision for not applying for the FAFSA? So the question is really about the Cal grant and Cal grant eligibility, I think.
So, that is a great question. So when you said you were offered a Cal grant and then you took a year off, I'm assuming you took a year off from school. Well, hopefully, you contacted the Student Aid Commission to let them know that you were going to take a leave of absence. But if you did not, contact the Student Aid Commission, the California Student Aid Commission, and they can answer that question for you to tell you how to best get that Cal grant reinstated. You certainly would have to complete the FAFSA or the DREAM Act in order for us to even, be considered for that Cal grant. And one thing about UC San Diego that so far, and I don't expect any immediate changes, but if the student's income, because remember we took the budget minus family contribution equals financial need. So if that family contribution is low and the student wasn't eligible for the Cal grant, then we would increase the university grant. So in some cases, you're going to get the same amount of grant money. It's just going to come from the university in lieu of the Student Aid Commission, which is who awards the Cal grant. And then again, I mentioned that blue and gold. So let's say you weren't offered that Cal grant. The Cal grant is $12,570. And your total gift money was not $12,570, then we would certainly, if your family income is less than $80,000 and you're a California resident, we would offer you the blue and gold. That could be a good example of a student who's being offered the blue and gold. Another good example is maybe that student who's living at home because that budget is a lot less if you're living with parents. So there isn't enough university grant money to equal your system-wide fees of $12,570, we would award you the blue and gold. But going back to answer that question about the Cal grant, contact the Student Aid Commission. And one of my colleagues, I'm sure they can put that, I think I see it on there. You might want to put the address if you haven't already, and then contact them and they can help you navigate that. Okay, so, but again, you definitely have to either complete the FAFSA or the DREAM Act, okay, even to be considered for the Cal grant. Cal grant is normally, it's 4 years from high school and 2 years as a transfer student.
That Cal grant really comes into play for many, many students. The next question comes from a parent. We have, as I mentioned earlier, Yvonne, we have quite a few parents that are actually listening in tonight. And this question reads, can parents help to pay the school loans directly, or does that have to be from the student? Can the parents kind of do that, or is it the student's responsibility?
Well, now, okay, we have two types of loans. So we've got the student loan and then we have the Parent Plus loan. So the student takes the loan out in the student's name, and anybody can pay back that loan. That student can certainly pay that loan back when they're in school. And if they're subsidized, interest is not accruing. So if they have the ability to pay that back, that's not a problem whatsoever. There's the Parent Plus loan, where the loan is in the parent's name. And the parents apply, they're responsible for that loan, and they repay back that loan. Then they can pay it during the time the student is in school, when a student applies for a student loan, it automatically gets deferred till after they graduate. A parent can apply for the Parent Plus loan, and it's not going to be automatic deferred, but the parent can certainly contact who's ever holding the note or the servicer and ask and request that they not make any payments while the student is in school. So that's an option. It's just that the parents have to request it. It's not automatic. And where students have loan limits every year, a student has a loan limit of how much they can take out during that academic year, the parent can borrow up to the cost of attendance minus any aid that the student is receiving. So parents have, I mean, in some cases, let's say that we determine, that the family contribution exceeded our budget, which is 34,000. Let's just say for 34,000, that's our total cost of attendance, and that's a little high, but I'm just throwing that out there. And a student did not receive any aid because that family contribution was 36,000. Then the parent could technically borrow the 34,000, the whole total cost of attendance, and the parent plus loan, whereas a student has a limit of what they can borrow. But to answer that question, if a student took out a loan, can the parent repay back the loan? Absolutely.
Thank you, Yvonne.
You're welcome.
I want to point out we're receiving quite a few questions about residency and residency for tuition purposes. We did paste a link in the chat for folks to learn a little bit more about that. That is more under the registrar's office at UC San Diego, and it might be more appropriate for you to check out that information. That's a very complicated question, and it really depends on each case by case basis. So Yvonne, we're gonna kind of pass through that tonight. I think that might be more appropriate for the registrar's office.
Correct.
We are getting some questions though about the 529 plan. If your family has a 529 plan, will that affect their eligibility for Cal Grant and financial aid?
The 529 plan really is something that it's between, it could and it could not, and that gets a little complicated. So what I'm going to do is just the 529 plan, it's a savings plan. So, I mean, yes, it could. But that's I don't want that to defer you. I want you to apply for financial aid, and we will determine again. The 529 plan here at UC San Diego, they contact our Student Financial Solutions, and then we have a contact person there who instructs the parent on how to, how to navigate that 529. They work with Student Financial Services. So students and parents, again, it could, but don't let that defer, don't let that, I want you to not let it, stop you from completing one of the applications. Certainly that 529 plan is a great tax write-off, and it's a savings plan, but complete the application and then let us determine, what the student's eligible for based on how they complete that FAFSA or the DREAM Act.
Very good. Well, we've got about 5 more minutes and the questions are starting to taper down a little bit. But Yvonne, you've been in this business for such a long time and you've worked with so many students. You've talked about filling out the FAFSA and meeting the deadlines or the California DREAM application. What recommendations do you have for our transfer students, especially students that might have children or maybe they have a partner or a spouse? Is there anything specific that our transfer students should be doing at this stage?
Well, the application, the FAFSA or the DREAM Act, what they ask for income and assets. And what's really important is the number in the household, how many is in college. That will determine that family's ability to pay. So that transfer student, we do recognize transfer students that you were able to attend a community college and make the grade, have a great GPA, and work full-time or near full-time. We do know that. So we also want to just let you know that when you attend here or any four-year school, but let's say UC San Diego, because we certainly want you to attend here. We think you've got a great institution and we certainly see you here. What we do is we have an appeal because we want the student to focus on their academics, and that transfer student again was able to earn, a good wage while attending a community college and still making the grade. And here it's going to be a lot different because here you're going from a semester program, transfer students, to an accelerated quarterly program. So we do know that it's going to be a little different. We recognize that. So we can always adjust that family contribution and ask you, okay, and some of you, if you're coming from out of San Diego, that's not even going to be an option because you're not going to be able to have that job. Most cases, I don't know if you're able to telecommute, but in most cases, you're not going to be able to work. And we certainly want you to focus on your academics. So that's one of the things to keep in mind if you do get a student contribution, or because again, you would be a great candidate to complete that appeal, because in 2020, you might have been able to earn, a significant amount, and then you're transferring here. And we certainly want you to, cut down your hours and focus on your academics. So if you have a student contribution that's from income, you definitely want to navigate that appeal process. You want to complete that appeal so we can reduce down your student contribution. And that way we reduce down that student contribution, we increase your financial need, which will increase your financial aid. Another thing, transfer students, is again, keep in mind that here it's one set fee. We're a public, yes, we are. We're a full-time institution. At your community college, they charged you per unit. Here we don't. It's a one set amount. And again, it's full-time is 12 units. To get the maximum amount, you students need to complete, or not complete, but be enrolled in at least 12 units per quarter. So that's a little different there for our transfer students. And again, for those of you who are married or have children, you're going to put that on that application, either the FAFSA or the DREAM Act, and that is calculated into determining your ability to pay. So we would certainly, take that into account. And we do have some great programs here for students who are parents. Okay, so you definitely want to research that, and we would certainly give you that information as well.
Well, Yvonne, we have about 1 minute left. Are there any closing remarks that you would like to leave with our students, parents, and counselors tonight regarding financing and education?
Well, I just want to thank you again for giving up your evening. I know I shared some information with you. Again, I encourage you and I invite you to contact us. Even if you're not, like I say, UC bound, we can still certainly, we want to be a resource for you. Again, thank you. If you have any questions, keep in mind, there is no dumb question. We've heard it all, and just know that we do know financial aid is extremely important. And we know that many of our students will not be able to attend here without financial aid. So that's why we want you to know that we are here for you. We certainly hope that after tonight, we planted that seed, and you are gonna apply to UC San Diego, and just know that we are here for you should you attend. And I will just say, have a great rest of your evening, and certainly hope that some of you will consider attending. And again, thank you for giving me the time to share